Yeah, I think there's reason to think Deshaun, again, if healthy, and we don't know anything about that shoulder other than the little snippets we see online. But obviously the fact that he's even throwing right now makes you think, yeah, he's got to be ready by the time the season starts. So not knowing, though, how that's going to work over time and whether the wear and tear is going to impact him or his mechanics or his accuracy. But there is reason based on what we saw last year. Like, we saw reason to hope. The thing is, you could say that with how many quarterbacks? Like, how many quarterbacks last year in the NFL made tough window throws or showed mobility and made a great play on the run?
All of them at some point.
Feels like all of them now. I've never seen the league with the glimpses and even the guys that are bad. I mean, Justin Fields, I know what he said, that Justin Fields has improved every single year. Justin Fields has some of the great quarterback plays of the last 2 years, his highlight reel. So, but I don't expect him to be able to access that consistently. Deshaun Watson, all of his highlight plays, I would say, and I people have wanted to argue, I mean, his top 15, his top 20 plays, they're all in Houston, and his top 10 games are all in Houston. Not one of them in Cleveland is a top 10 game. Can you point to one game in Cleveland that would be a top 10?
The Baltimore second. I know
that's not a game. That's 2 quarters.
How's that not a game?
Because he had his worst half as a pro.
It was a bad half, but it was also a really good half.
You can't say if a guy had his worst half as a pro, that can't possibly be eligible.
So
for
coming back from 14 down like 3 times and then taking the lead is still not a good game because he was 9-23 in the first half?
No, it's not, because he had huge wins in Houston. He beat great teams in Houston.
He had a huge win against Baltimore.
He had great coast-to-coast games in Houston.
It wasn't a coast-to-coast game. I will grant you that, but it was a great win.
That's why Watson was so good in Houston.
So that wasn't a signature win against Baltimore?
No.
Oh, my God. That's ridiculous.
It's not even close.
Come on, you got to be able to give him at least that.
It was a great win. It's not one of the top 10 performances in Deshaun Watson history. Not even close.
I don't know how it can't be a top 10 performance.
Kenny, because I saw the first half.
I don't care if you saw the first half. The game wasn't one in the first half. It was one in the second half.
He didn't look like an NFL quarterback in the first half.
He didn't look like an NFL quarterback.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm comparing him to –
Hold on. Jordan had bad first halves in his career.
Yes, but he also had 10 amazing games where he was great from start to finish.
Obviously.
So if he had a great second half later in his career, it's Michael Jordan. He had amazing games. That's what I'm saying. Deshaun Watson had so many amazing games from start to finish in Houston that just having a half of football for the Cleveland Browns in 2020.
He had amazing games in Houston that they lost when they were 4-12 in 2020.
Sure, he can't play defense. Like, he's not responsible for the defense.
Okay, but I need what they paid him for is what he did.
He was a big reason they were losing that game by as much as they were. So all I'm saying is
that's fair.
That was a great second half performance. Not one of his top 10 games as a pro.
Absolutely one of his top 10 games as a pro.
I asked
it is.
Call Landry up right now and
Why do I need to call Landry?
Because he watched him in Houston. You didn't watch him every.
Landry watched him in Houston,
but that matters. That matters.
At that time, I was watching every game every week.
That's when he had his greatest games. Was in Houston, not in Cleveland. And we're just comparing. It was a great half of football. I agree with you. I will not agree that it's a top 10 game that he's had in his career.
It is absolute. I mean, this is apples and oranges, and this is definitely. It's definitely a top 10 game he's had in his career. I don't know.
We agree to disagree, Kenny. You're not really giving me a lot of ammo. You're just
everything.
You're just assuming one half of football in 2023 was better than 4 quarters in Houston. You weren't watching the Houston games as closely.
Yes, I was watching the Houston games.
Not as closely as you were the Browns.
Well, obviously, I'm not watching
the Browns games 7 times over throughout the week.
I watched them 4 times.
And how much did you watch the first half against Baltimore? How much did you go back?
Many times over.
You went back and watched that.
Yes.
Then you can't possibly say.
Look at my history.
I know you didn't, because you can't possibly, because you wouldn't say it was one of the top games in his career.
Yes, I can.
Because it was so bad.
It was bad in the first half.
Yes.
In the second half, he was incredible.
Yes. And I'm telling you, he did not have a game like that where he had any half as bad as he had against Baltimore. I'm not saying he was
consistent the entire game, but the performance
was the only reason they were losing by as much as they were.
Is the reason why it's such a big game.
So he put him into the hole.
I didn't say he didn't put him in the hole. Great players do put their teams in a hole. Also, great players dig themselves out of a hole. Happens all the time.
Okay, and he didn't have to do that because in Houston, he would play great 4 quarters or 3 quarters. Not as bad as that half that he had.
If you can't let a Browns fan hold on to Baltimore, then I don't know why we're doing sports talk in this city.
You're putting words in my mouth. I didn't say. I said he had a great second half. We both agree he had a great second half, right?
Yeah.
Where we disagree is a full game. And he had better full games. And I don't know how you are dismissing that. I don't know how you could debate that. You know how big of a fan I was of Watson. I watched those games closely. He was go to that Seattle game.
You go through extremes. I think you're bothered because you stumped so hard for him, and he has struggled.
Yeah,
I've never denied that
he's
he
been
has
a
struggled.
shell of himself.
My God, I got to give credit where it's due in the Baltimore game.
That game against Baltimore, he showed that he's a shell of himself because he was so bad for a half.
But the second half,
Watson was not doing that.
But the second half, he was full shell.
And he's had great.
Was he unshelled in the second half?
That's the thing. He would have two great halves in the same game again when he was in Houston. There's a difference. I don't know how you're debating that. I think it's common sense.
Very easy to debate.
4 quarters versus 2 quarters.
If you were to go out in the street and you were to go to a different city, go to Washington, D.C., and say, hey, last year against Baltimore, was that a top 5 Deshaun Watson game? They will say yes. They will absolutely say yes. Any sports fan.
Because they forgot about the Houston games.
DC,
I know it's a long time ago. I know it's been 6 years since he had some of those great games.
I know you're texting.
That's over half a decade. I understand some people can't really remember all of that.
I know you're texting.
Much like you're not remembering all of that.
I know you're texting Ken Wyman and Bob Haney. Did they both get back to you about the other thing about the rivalry?
Bob did. Ken did not.
Okay, text them again and ask them whether or not that game against Baltimore,
which was, by the way,
Deshaun
20 of 34 for 213 yards.
Do they believe
that is not a top 10 game?
Do they believe that that's a top 10 Deshaun Watson game?
20 of 34. Guys, I want Cleveland to know. I want Cleveland to know because clearly Ken did forget this after his 8 viewings.
I did not forget it.
20 of 34 for 213 yards. One touchdown, one interception. By the way, quarterback rating, 74.
He's not understanding.
He's had 30 games better than that. He's had 35 games better than that. I've got the stats. His QBR, 55.7. That is a grand salami. Ken Carman has been knocked out of the game.
Can I dig you deeper into the shoot? Should I go get a shovel? Should I get you one?
Because the numbers are here.
The general populace.
The numbers are
all
here.
over the country.
The numbers are here.
I should keep going to Owen. If I went from Seattle, Washington to New York City and asked the general sports fan
if Ken has shown us anything this show, this show, he only needs half of the answer to get the correct thing.
That's true.
He doesn't need the full thing.
Just like 2-second trivia.
I give you credit. That was really good. Well done.
So Deshaun Watson, 213 yards passing. Is that a top 10 game in his career? Not even close.
No, it's not. If you look at the stats, it's not that way.
Oh, I can't look at the stats now because that doesn't tell us a picture. That never gives us any info. Now Kenny's getting worked up. Listen to Kenny.
Because you know I'm right. You know I'm right.
Top 10 game.
If you ask the general public walking down the street, brother, they are going to say it's a top 5 game.
He started 6 of 24 in that game.
He did. It was terrible. I remember.
Must be an all-timer.
I thought it was 9 of 23.
Whatever. He was terrible.
Threw a pick 6 to start the game.
I know. I'm well aware. He's done it multiple times.
Then they kicked 3 field goals.
I know.
He couldn't get the offense down the field in the first half.
I remember it well.
Then what is wrong with you saying it was a good game?
You gentlemen have made me watch that like it's a Clockwork Orange. I remember it well. That movie wasn't even that bad. Like, people are like, this is banned in the UK. I'm like, not that bad. Ain't that good.
It's
it's a good movie, but okay, that's objectionable. I mean, I've seen worse in movies. If you're banning that, you better ban Tusk.